Hello, and welcome to another episode of the podcast where we will reassure you that football is fixable. Alright, Seth.
Alright.
We're back again after, it's only been a week.
After a week, yeah.
Yeah, but such a boring week.
I know.
International, what's it? The Nations League.
Nations League, yeah. Very important league.
Apparently, to somebody, somewhere, presumably.
Yeah.
Oh, just so boring. That's actually going to be our episode today, is it? Fixing international football, but we will get to that in a bit. But geez, thank goodness the Premier League's back.
I know. It's just a matter of waiting, isn't it? Going, is it going to be this? Oh, there's another week of it, right?
Yeah. That's it. We're 7 games into the season. We've had 2 international breaks, and what was it? There's another one. When's it? November
sometime. Yeah.
Oh, sorry, everyone. We're starting the episode. I'm a bit grumpy already.
It's a negative moment. Yeah.
Such a moan already. And it's been a big week for England, actually, because, the news this week says, did you know we have a new manager now?
We do. Mr. German.
Yeah, Mr. German. Yeah. Thomas Tuchel, or Tuchel, however you prefer to say it.
Tuchel, apparently.
Is it?
Yeah.
Is that how Scousers say
it? That's actually on Restless Football. They had this German guy, and Lineker was interviewing him, and he said, "How do you say it?" And he was saying Tuchel, and the German guy actually said, "Scousers will find it easy to say."
Yeah, they've been saying it right all this time.
Yeah, all this time. They were German all along. Yeah,
that explains it.
Yeah, I got some German colleagues actually at work, and they asked me what I think of old Thomas taking over. I said I love it. Not only is he a big manager to have managed big names in big games, which trademark, that sounds brilliant, doesn't it?
That rhymes, yeah.
Not only that, but he's a brilliant character.
I think that's one thing I agree with you on that. He's not afraid to drop a player like Foden if he's not playing well. There's been a thing recently, actually. Foden doesn't play well for England. I think Tuchel.
Yeah, why not?
I'm becoming like Jewish. Tuchel. Sorry if any Jewish listeners, I think he's not afraid to drop big name players, is he? He'll do what he feels he wants to for the team.
Yeah.
I think sometimes it can cost certain relationships with players, so that's something to keep an eye on. Hopefully,
I think it's just we had 8 years of Southgate basically being on the sideline, being outwitted by the bigger teams and the bigger managers, and I feel as though we've finally got a manager who won't be overturned in that way.
He's definitely a manager for big games. He's good at the cups, especially. He's obviously famously won the Champions League.
He's a legend now in Souness's eyes because he won the Champions League.
Oh yeah. Souness must think he's a legend. Yeah. Definitely. Maybe they took Souness's advice and that's why they appointed him.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Yeah, if people don't remember what Souness said, he said that you're only a legend if you win the Champions League.
Yeah, so that's when Simon Jordan said about Di Matteo as a legend.
Yeah. And then what was it? Ferguson and Pep and stuff have won it multiple times, and so they're even bigger legends. There needs to be a new word.
They're even bigger legends, right? Yeah. But I think he does have the chops, if you like. I think for the role, it's only 18 months, which is going to take us through the World Cup, and I suppose they can then review the situation and stuff. So it's kind of getting to the point where they want to, we've got a great crop of players. We need to be making the most of these tournaments while we have them, sort of thing. So I can kind of get it in that sense as well. Yeah,
and they needed to get him before United probably would have gone for him.
Oh yeah, true. Well, yeah, not to put words into United's mouths. They're going to sack their current manager. Collective mouths. Yeah. But obviously there's a lot of pressure around Ten Hag at the moment. We're going to have Dan on soon so we can get his insight on all that. But
speaking of Souness, we have a silly Souness saying.
Silly Souness sayings! Yeah, so quite right, we've got a silly Souness saying. So what he's come up with this time, Sess, is another, it's a classic. So I think it was with Simon Jordan on one of his podcasts, whatever it was, and they were...
That was with, Troy Deeney and Simon Jordan.
Yeah. And they were talking about Arsene Wenger in this case. So Simon Jordan asked Graham Souness what his take is on Wenger. What do you think of him? Is he a football man, I think was the question.
Mm-hmm.
And Souness said, my take on Wenger was he got very, very lucky. At the time when French football produced its greatest ever group of players, he inherited the best back five in world football and a 22-year-old Bergkamp. Then he had 10 years where he won a couple of FA Cups because that cycle had been and gone.
Oh.
And I was raging.
Because of how accurate it is.
Oh, right. Yeah. Maybe it was just hurtful because I'm sure. No, he's had a couple of FA Cups, even in Wenger's, in the downturn after we couldn't spend much money, and then we had the pressure of City and various other things. Whatever the reasons were, we still won like 3 or 4 FA Cups with Wenger in that latter, the less successful 10 years, if you like. But that's a bit harsh on us then, isn't it?
Yeah, but the annoying thing about that is it took Souness talking about Wenger for you to realise what I've been saying about Souness all along.
Yeah, I'm not having it.
You immediately text me when he said when you saw that.
Yeah.
And you was like, yeah, I'm against him now.
Yeah, that's it. He's burnt that bridge well and truly.
You defended him. Fair enough.
His old school
stuck
approach.
With him and he's let you down.
Wenger, we smashed Souness's teams every time. When Souness used to be the manager of Blackburn and Newcastle and stuff like that, our teams would smash them back then. It was in that first... I suppose Wenger's career is sort of broken down into 2 decades, isn't it? Because he was there for like 22, 23 years or whatever it was.
Yeah, something like that.
And they kind of break it into 2 halves. And the first one was very successful, but then we moved to the stadium, and there's loads of other factors. Obviously, Chelsea and Man City with their billion pound investments and stuff like that.
Yeah, but perfectly fair with Man City, wouldn't it?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. Nothing to see here. Yeah.
No.
But so obviously it's a very changing dynamic of the league and everything. But for whatever reason, he's really picked a little fight with him there for some.
Yeah, you can tell it's something personal.
It sounds personal, doesn't it?
Yeah. Because otherwise, in no way would someone as experienced as Souness in football, in no way would you think Wenger is not a football person. Because that's the thing. He was like, no, he's not a football person.
Yeah, that was it. He's not a football person. That was the ultimate kind of answer to the question, wasn't it? He said, I don't think he is. I don't really know the man, he said later on, though. Weirdly. So that's a silly Souness saying straight away. But,
I don't even know him, Your Honour.
Yeah, exactly. Wenger, I know I'm an Arsenal fan, but bear with me for a second. This is someone who revolutionised the Premier League when he came over, the whole fitness and the kind of diets and stretching before games and all that. He absolutely revolutionised Arsenal, but also the league. If you go and watch any former Arsenal player talking about it, saying when they went to the England camps and stuff, all the other teams' players wanted to see, how do you do things? What are you eating? And all that kind of stuff. It was such a kind of new thing to the league. Now it's kind of taken for granted. People talk about Pep and stuff, but these were the way
that they played as well. He inherited a good defence. However, the way Arsenal played, that was a very Arsenal style, which in Spain, it became famous there, but Arsenal was doing it all the time, and he was almost mocked for using the Spanish style in the English league. And then Bayern Munich was saying that Arsenal were being run in the Bayern Munich / German method, where you basically buy players off of profit rather than go into debt. And again, Wenger and Arsenal were kind of mocked for their transfer embargoes.
That's the other thing, not just the diets and everything else. The way he'd be signing players like Nikola Anelka, for example. We signed him for a couple of million. We had a couple of great seasons with him, and then he went to Real Madrid. We sold him for 23 million, I think it was in the end. And we used that money to buy Thierry Henry and a new training ground. And Thierry Henry, what happened there? He was
all right, wasn't he?
It was all right.
He was a bit overrated, but
it turned out all right. So, all this stuff. And he used to live in dream football all day, every day. He was obsessed, if anything. So I don't know what more of a football man you could be. So it does sound a bit bonkers.
Yeah, he definitely, I think he's accepted that he will say controversial things that most people will think are wrong.
Yeah.
But he's just kind of accepted it now, hasn't he?
I think he's gradually being more and more kind of, I don't know if it's fair to say, marginalised. He's not really on the mainstream channels as much anymore, and he's now on these...
Yeah, he's rarely on TalkSport now.
Yeah.
We actually brought in this Silly Souness Sayings segment this season.
and he started to... I don't know if it's because people listening to us have realised, maybe we don't want to get him on then.
Yeah.
He says the silly stuff, but there we go. What's next, Sess?
There was a guy on TalkSport recently who he founded a company called something. Can't really remember what it is. Yeah.
Wow.
His company basically looks at a lot of statistics, not just on the pitch, but on the training pitch, and how players basically, how many games they play, their training methods, and a lot of things to basically try and see if there's any correlation between the number of games played and the injuries. The number of injuries that happen.
Interesting thought, yeah.
Yeah, so, this whole Rodri thing, played too many games, getting injuries and all this stuff.
And we've solved that already. We
solved
looked
it.
Statistically, they don't play more games.
No, absolutely not. So what this guy said was, there isn't specifically a correlation in terms of the number of games played, but it's more the number of games that are in a condensed fashion rather than just overall number of games.
So
if you
smaller
have,
gaps between games.
Yeah,
Right.
yeah. So if you have to keep playing every 2-3 days for 2 weeks, then the likelihood of injuries goes up.
I guess that makes sense because recovery time and things.
Yeah, and we completely understand that.
Yeah.
However, over the whole course of a season, that only happens occasionally, doesn't it? And it's up to the managers to actually make sure that
the squads are rotated and things.
Yeah,
That's why you have a squad, which is also what we said.
Yeah, and this is another thing. Anyone who plays fantasy football knows this. There's so many double game weeks where you triple captain someone that you think will play both games and they don't.
Yes.
So many times that happens.
Yeah.
In which case, they're already managing it quite well. So
yeah, true.
What are so many of these players complaining about?
Did they find anything out about the that they do rotate the squads and stuff like that? Was that in the stats or anything? Or
yeah, the guy said that the top tier teams basically are the ones that are able to rotate more and manage that more.
So Rodri, who plays for Man City, the top side,
top tier, top of the top tier.
So they have less of an argument. Even
the
less
ones,
of an argument.
Yeah. The ones at the top, they're the ones that shouldn't be arguing. The teams like, we established last week you hate Southampton, so the teams like Southampton should be complaining more.
Right. Sorry,
and Everton.
Southampton. I don't. I'm sorry.
I mean, time after time you were just.
I don't know. They just kept coming to my mind when I was thinking of teams near the bottom.
You were
of the
like
league.
really rubbish teams like Southampton.
I didn't say that. Go and listen. Please do listen, by the way.
Nice. Nice segue.
There we go. With stats actually on that. So just to support us, we were right, by the way. When we looked at those stats, we randomly picked out players, didn't we? And you were looking at Dalglish and.
Yeah, we picked the top players that we thought would most likely play as many games.
Yeah, and the top sides during that era over last couple of generations, really.
Yeah.
Well, there's been a study. It was on BBC Sport, and it was a recent study by the CIES, which I can't figure out what that stands for, because underneath it says the International Centre for Sports Studies. And it's also known as the Football Observatory, but I'm guessing maybe it's a foreign translation or something.
Could be.
Maybe it's maybe like from Brussels or something. Anyway, so stats-wise, supporting what we were just talking about, percentage of clubs that play different groups of games per season. So do you play 40 games or under? 45.1% of clubs, so almost half of all clubs, play 40 or under games in a season.
Oh, wow.
At the flip side, so it does it in kind of groups of 10 or whatever, 80 or over, how many clubs play 80 games or over? It's 0.3.
So that's pretty much, you're looking at 1 or 2 clubs maybe.
Yeah, 70 to 79 games, 1.2%. So
wow,
it's just taken out of proportion. It's just
Rodri and Man City, they were saying that we could play up to 75 games this season. Yes, but that's only if you go to the final of every single competition.
Yeah, all the cups.
And you manage to not get injured that whole time and play every single one.
And you'll be playing every game.
Which, guess what, Rodri? You're injured.
Oh, yeah. So he's not playing now, actually.
No.
So he's not going to play that many games.
No.
Well, on here, another set of stats is they could pick teams from different leagues, so the top leagues around the world. So Real Madrid, United, and Bayern Munich from the relative leagues. Real Madrid haven't played more than 62 games since 2001, by the looks of it. That was a high point. There's a whole, you can see it year on year, 62, 59.
And you can expect them to go to the final of the Copa del Rey. They've won Champions League numerous times.
Exactly. They actually, a couple of years ago, they went down to 44 games, then 59 and 56, 61, and then they're currently on 50. Last season was 55 games, it looks like.
And they won the Champions League then.
And they won the Champions League.
Yeah.
United, fewer than that. 52 games currently, so over the last sort of few years. They did have a high of 71 games a couple of years, about 3-4 years ago. But other than that, again, it's the high point, the average kind of thing was around 66. So there's 57, 56, 60, 54.
Ridiculous.
And this is a trend. So these are the teams that are playing near the top of all the leagues in most of the competitions to the end.
And these stats are readily available. We're proving it's readily available to everyone. And yet, why is it we're the only ones always bringing up these things to back up the actual argument?
Exactly. They have all these debates and stuff on all these mainstream broadcasts, but no one else is using this approach that we're using.
They're just constantly talking about the feeling, don't they? Oh, it just feels like we're playing a lot more.
I play a lot more these days. No, it's just there's football's more accessible. We can watch more games. That's probably what it's all about, to be honest. And even we can look at it as an average across all the teams. So instead of looking at one team in particular, you've got average number of matches per club per season around from 2012 right the way up to 2024, and it's around 42 to 41 games per season on average, if you consider all the teams. Those Champions League playing teams, it's about 50. The high point was 55.2 games on average for Champions League teams.
That's ridiculous. You'd hope to play about 50 games at least as an average player. That's what you'd want to play, wouldn't you? We used to we did it on an amateur scale, but we used to play 2-3 times a week, every single week.
Yeah, loved it as well.
Yeah.
And we'd have full-time jobs outside of that.
Exactly. If we played once a week, that's already over 50 games.
Yeah, true.
Yeah, that's the annoying thing for any of you out there who thinks that the players are playing too many games. No, a few players in a few teams might have the possibility to play those games. However, it's the managers picking them. It comes down to this.
I can't believe no one else is saying that.
Yeah,
either.
No one else says it. Pep gets away with it, going, "Oh yeah, there's too many games. Rodri, you're on."
Yeah, it's like,
but yeah, it's crazy. Rodri, you're on again.
You've just got away. No one's noticing. But hang on a minute. He's the one picking this up. Anyway, so it's Premier League weekend. Obviously, we've just had it. Just want to sort of shout this out for Thomas Frank for Brentford, by the way. Mm-hmm. So it'd be interesting to see. So we're recording this segment before the actual fixtures this weekend that we've just seen, if that makes sense. But before the international break, Brentford had, was it 3 consecutive games where they were scoring in the first minute or two?
Yeah.
I think they scored 2 consecutively in under a minute, and then the game just before the international break was 1 minute 16 or something. After the game, Thomas Frank was interviewed, and they said, "What took you so long? It took you over a minute to score." And he said, "Well, we've been practicing the coin toss all week, but we lost it, unfortunately. So that's what took him so long." Although that's a genius response.
That is genius, yeah.
Thomas Frank's amazing.
Oh, anyway, he's awesome.
Premier League's back, and let's get into the episode. Right, so today then, Sess, can we fix international games and breaks and friendlies?
Yeah, we're going to go back to the start of the news where we were a bit moany.
We're so grumpy. Can we not have as many international breaks, please?
I know, we just finished this is the second one of the season so far, right?
Yeah, and 7 games in. I'll say it again. Yeah. And we've had 2.
What was it, 2 weeks or something, wasn't it? As well, it's the 5th of October to the 19th or something. Yeah,
well, I suppose because it's a 2-week period, I suppose, isn't it? You play 2 games.
Oh, I just hate it. It's so boring because it used to be friendlies, which I never really liked friendlies as such. I would have preferred just to have, the Premier League or whatever.
Yeah.
However, if it's occasionally, you think fair enough, the England managers need time to pick the squad, pick the formations, try out certain things. Fair enough, they need certain games. But then they decided to bring in this idea of the Nations League to try and, I don't know, to make it meaningful.
It seemed like it was just to make international friendlies have a meaning.
Yeah, which it really didn't feel like it at all. And it felt like the first time they brought Nations League in, every game was a semi-final.
I know what you mean.
Yeah,
I'm
just
sure
felt
it wasn't,
weird.
but yeah, I know what you mean.
Yeah, Southgate got plaudits for finishing in the semi-final twice or something.
Yeah.
And I was like, but didn't every team basically?
Yeah, it was quite easy to get there, it seems.
Yeah.
But yeah, it didn't really add. There's no real jeopardy, no real meaning to it. People, I'm sure, going and I mean, there was I think we mentioned on a previous episode. So Wembley was, sold. It was sold out for the game. Didn't sound it by the atmosphere, mind, but
no.
I suppose it's good for families to be able to get to matches and stuff, which they might not be able to for Premier League games where it's all the season ticket holders and things. It's nice. Yeah. It maybe opens up to more people, which is okay. But
it's like I said last week, though. You can always sell out a stadium. That's actually fairly easy because a lot of the times, you look at the Champions League final, something like 80% of the tickets are given away to sponsors and stuff.
Yeah,
very few people are actually the fans. So it's easy to sell out a stadium, but if you have that number of people watching at home, they'll cancel the whole Nations League altogether.
Before, it'd be seen as a failure.
Yeah, complete failure.
Have that viewership.
We only had 80,000 people watching at home.
Yeah.
So I think it's just it just makes it seem bigger than it actually should be.
Yeah, and the thing is, the Premier League. So maybe we're spoiled. We're lucky with the Premier League. So when it stops the Premier League, it's just last weekend. Those like memes when there's that bloke sat on the swings, just not knowing what to do. That's what I felt like last weekend. I was just I'm bored now.
Yeah.
There's no Premier League. I know I need a life, but before you say it, you do say it a lot.
I do, all the time.
But it just was I'll put the midday game. Oh, there isn't one.
You
I'll
know
put the
when
afternoon game. Oh, there isn't one.
Yeah, you know when Qatar hosted the World Cup in 2022 or whatever, and that was mid-season. That felt completely different because there was proper jeopardy.
Yeah, and it's a World Cup.
Build up, and it was amazing. No one has a build up to the Nations League.
No, exactly.
And because it stops us from watching the Premier League, we hate it even more.
I think that's the thing. I enjoy the World Cup and the national competitions, the European and all that kind of thing. But also, the Premier League's not on then. It's at the end of the season. It's over the summer, or if you say the Christmas break, and there's no other. It's its own tournament too. Well, these games are stopping the Premier League, and it's stopping. I'd rather watch the FA Cup and League Cup games and stuff like that. I'd rather watch my club. I support my club. I want to see my, England do well, but it's not the team I follow week in, week out. I kind of want to watch my team.
Yeah, and for all the players, the World Cup is basically the pinnacle for them, really, isn't it? To be,
I get that.
To be picked for your national team to play the World Cup. So quite often, towards the end of a season, a lot of players kind of, if they need surgery, they get it done during the season, so they're okay for the World Cup.
Yeah.
Or they sit out certain games because they don't want to risk getting injured for the World Cup.
Yeah.
No one does that for the Nations League, do they?
No.
I'm going to save myself for the Nations League against Finland. Yeah. So it's even with the players, there's no jeopardy. It's more of a hindrance. They pretend to be injured so they don't have to play the Nations League or friendlies. You don't have that in any of the World Cup or Euros or Copa America or anything. So even then, we know there's no jeopardy. The players know there's no jeopardy.
Yeah.
And I know there's an element of something about the qualifier stages included within the Nations League. I think if you win it, or if you
just have a link to qualifying into the bigger competitions, maybe.
But I don't care. Just bring back the qualifiers.
Just to bring a bit of balance, like you were just putting there. Another argument for, I suppose, from the players' point of view, it's a chance for them to stake a claim to get into the team for the actual tournament.
Cole Palmer probably likes it.
Yeah, Cole Palmer's a chance for him to prove that he can be, and Ollie Watkins and players like that for the England, for example.
Yeah.
And they're trying to nail down a place in the team. So I kind of see some aspects of, but we've got so many games. We don't need as many as this. So I'm not saying completely get rid of all international games apart from the World Cup.
Yeah.
But do we have to have so many? Also, I'm just going to add in standards. I don't think the standard, I think that's the other thing we're spoilt with the Prem, is the standard of the Prem that we have, the league we've got. International games, I don't know what other people think with this. What do you think? The standard for me is not up to the same level.
I think it's pretty well recognised that international standards are lower than
club standards.
Yeah. I mean, the main clubs, we should say. It's not just
the elite sort of clubs, yeah.
So I think we shouldn't really expect the best standards as such. I do think, in an ideal world for me, international tournaments would be pretty much the only international games we'd have. I know you need these like practice games and stuff. Maybe 3 or 4 a season. That's about it.
I'd like that.
Yeah, because then it's basically because of money. It's this whole thing we've said before. More and more games being added because of money. That's all it really is. It's this whole idea of giving managers the ability to try out other players and stuff. No, it's money.
Just say as it is.
Yeah, if there was no money in it, then immediately FIFA and UEFA and all these, they'll just go, oh, well, what's the point then? Well, we're not going to do it for free.
Yeah.
So it'll suddenly disappear.
Interesting.
And when it comes to the World Cup and stuff, already we know that the standards aren't going to be as high as the top leagues, but there are still going to be great players and great managers. So I would say that'll bring up the jeopardy a bit more. We don't know how well we're going to do because the last time we saw England play was 3 months ago.
Yeah, I mean, they can still, behind the scenes, have training. They can have a period of building up to the tournament where they can try and build that chemistry, which is what you have anyway. So just because you play a friendly 3 months ago doesn't mean suddenly there's chemistry in the team.
Yeah.
So I don't think it would make a massive difference on that front. Quality-wise, if you disagree with us, by the way, if you think about it, why do all the top managers want to manage clubs rather than national teams? Mm-hmm. I'd say that, just put that out there. In terms of clubs, you're able to get the top players from all nationalities. And you're playing with each other week in, week out. So that momentum and stuff you have, the chemistry you can build with the teams. Yeah. The national teams aren't going to have as wide a pool to select from because it's just the country.
Yeah.
And also, they don't play together that often. Fortunately, it's not more than it is already.
Yeah.
So for various reasons, that's why, for me,
it's frustrating because there are genuinely some people out there that think international tournaments are actually of a higher standard.
Yeah.
But what they confuse is the World Cup is the biggest tournament in the world.
It's the most meaningful tournament, I suppose.
Most watched, most money put into it. But that doesn't mean the standards are the best. I don't understand why people can't just separate those. In fact, they should listen to the very first episode of our first season.
That was it. About these things. Is what we opened. Yeah, we literally started fixing football with that as our approach, didn't we? And I know this could have been added into the news, but I've saved it for this part of the episode because in this last week, there's been lots of reports about FIFPro and the European Leagues Group have filed a legal complaint to the European Commission accusing FIFA. It sounds familiar.
FIFA? Are they accusing us or something?
No, where football is fixable.
We're FIFA.
FIFA.
Yeah.
With an exclamation. Yeah, that's true. Oh, I can see how people might make this.
Yeah, that's true.
But yeah, they're accusing FIFA, that's not us, of abusing power and conflict of interest. We don't do that, do we?
No. Not knowingly, anyway.
With a quote on this, this was like a post by Sky Sports, with a quote at the top, "Enough is enough. We can't take it anymore."
Who's we? Anyway.
So this is representatives of the FIFPro, the World's Players Union, and the European Leagues Group.
So is this basically similar to the whole Rodri-Allison thing?
Yeah, it's in the same argument. So they're not caring about player welfare is the point. So they're literally now taking legal action against the European Commission. So it's not. So it's taken it to the kind of European courts, essentially. Yeah.
This is amazing, isn't it? Because what they're saying is, we're playing so many games, we're getting too tired and injured. Okay, you don't have to play games then. Oh no, we want to play the games. Yeah, absolutely. We were saying, weren't we? We were watching the best Premier League goals of the last 10 years, and Rodri scored a screamer, and I said to you, didn't I? After that game, imagine if Pep went to him and said, "That was a brilliant goal. By the way, you're going to be rested next game." I'm going to rest
you next week. I think you're playing too many games.
Yeah.
What? No.
Yeah. No, I want to play every game. Oh, right. Okay, in which case, I'll rest you in the Champions League. No, I want to play the Champions League.
Yeah.
All right, I won't play you in the FA Cup semi-final or the final. Oh, no, I want to play those ones. All right, you won't play in the Club World Cup. Oh, no, I need that trophy in my cabinet. Well, when can I rest you then?
Exactly. Well, I suppose in a way, we're talking about these international friendlies. If they're going to reduce any games, it should be these pointless glorified friendlies that we're talking about.
Literally, the friendlies should be the first ones to go. If you're going to keep the Nations League, fine. In which case, get rid of the friendlies. Why do we still have friendlies?
I know.
That's literally the games with the least jeopardy. Friendlies. There's no meaning to a friendly.
Yeah, it is pointless. So if you are genuinely, which we know, we've already proven that you don't play too many games.
No.
But if you still aren't happy, then those are the games that need to go.
Yeah.
So there we go. So already we're fixed. We've kind of fixed it already.
Oh yeah, we're already going there. Another fix, I've got to say, and this is something that I know that you agree with, reluctantly.
Oh no.
I'm going to bring out the R word again.
Oh no, don't say it.
Yeah. Rugby.
Oh.
Yeah. No. I was trying to think of another R word, but I was like...
you had people worried for a minute, I think. What's R word?
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, so in rugby...
The rugby, yeah.
You don't have international breaks. You have internationals, but there's no break. So when Bath Rugby used to be good, although we're actually doing very well this season, but several years ago, we used to have quite a few English internationals, and suddenly the international games come along, there's no break, the players get taken by the international teams, but the season carries on going. So all of a sudden, Bath were missing 7 of their best English players. Yeah. But the season keeps going, which firstly means there's no actual international break. So for us, watching the Premier League, we wouldn't have to sit here for 2 weeks going, is there another game? Have I captained my... No. There's nothing like that. It just carries on. And also, the more competitive side to it is that the teams lower down, like the team Southampton that you hate, would tend to have fewer international players going to the friendlies or Nations League.
As much by it.
Yeah, which means it's quite a bit more competitive. So the teams lower down have a bit more of a chance against the top teams
that have lost their top players.
Yeah, they likely would have lost a lot of their top players. Yeah.
You saying Southampton aren't very good?
Don't try to change it round. We all know what you think of Southampton.
I get so many complaints from Southampton. No, but so I can see the logic behind it. Oh God, I can't believe that we're using rugby again. I can't agree with that. But if it means reducing these pointless friendlies that I was so bored last weekend, then I might consider it. I don't know, it could be a fix.
Then you start losing against Southampton, and then you start thinking, oh, maybe we should have the international breaks.
I think because being an Arsenal fan, if we're fighting for a title and suddenly we lose Saka, for example, and we lose Havertz, we lose most of our first team there, internationals. Hang on a minute, is that going to work? Is that a fix that could work in football? I'm not sure.
It's something that will be a shock to football because it's never happened before. If it's something that has always been done, like in rugby, then it just becomes part of the game.
And squads will be kind of able to adapt to it. Are rugby squads bigger than football squads, though? Is that something which allows that? Or,
right. Partly because there's more players playing. There's 15 aside on the pitch. But also the number of injuries and stuff, it's a lot more frequent than in football,
right?
So they are allowed a bit more of a leeway. So definitely, if you introduce it now, a lot of people probably will complain, especially like Arsenal fans, for example, would suddenly think, "Whoa, we're missing so many of our top players." But the thing is, if it's something that you introduced a while ago, like in rugby, then you account for it. You make assurances and leeway. So you start thinking, we can't just buy all players from this place. It's from Europe, for example, because then all of a sudden in the Nations League, all of those players will go.
So you have a more diverse squad. So that's a good thing in that sense.
It's brilliant in that way, yeah. So the scouting system changes. All aspects of the club's mentality changes then.
I suppose you could make the international calendar so it's not all European teams are playing at a certain time. You could kind of vary it up so it's not going to be your whole first team is lost at the same period of time, sort of thing. So you could make arrangements like that. I'd consider, I'd have to look and trial it and see what it looks like and stuff.
Yeah. Oh, so it's trial it.
Well, yeah.
Just call up the Premier League. Can we give it a go?
Anyway, in terms of, I'd need to see maybe do it once and see what the impact is, kind of thing.
Maybe watch rugby because you're slowly turning to the rugby side. You're agreeing with so many rugby situations. I'm
trying to because the turning point was, when I said a few episodes back, football's not football anymore. I realised we need to stop comparing it to what it was 20 years ago. There's so many differences now. There's more and more rules that have come in that. It was kind of the same for quite a long period of time, with a few tweaks every now and again, like the goalkeeper can pick the ball up now, or you can't do pass backs, and that one, that kind of thing. But it didn't seem. Now we're seeing rule change every year. There's loads of tweaks. The VAR is so drastic, sort of how much it's changing. It just feels such a different game now. So I think I just need to accept it's a different game, and I think all traditionalists, all traditional football fans need to do that if they're going to accept it, really.
Off air, we were saying, weren't we, that even though you don't like rugby, you can recognise that rugby is far better run than football.
Yeah, that I do agree with. I mean, I'm not looking at it from a complete, my dad's a huge rugby fan and a football fan. He'd love all sports, really. So I'd be growing up and there'd be rugby on all the time. So I'd still be exposed to a lot of the rugby. But
all that rugby.
All the rugby. So, and everything you've said, you can't go an episode without saying it, so
you can't go an episode without agreeing with me nowadays.
So I have to admit, rugby seems to be better managed than football does in a number of ways. But you know what? If football did start using common sense and fixing things, we wouldn't need to be here.
Yeah, that's
we wouldn't be in the job.
Thanks to football's failures,
exactly.
We have thrived.
Exactly.
That's true. From the ashes of football's failures. Yeah.
That's why we have at least 12 listeners every week. So, another sort of either additional or alternative approach, instead of having these staggered international weeks where you just have a weekend, so you have to go 2 weeks without watching it is 2 weeks essentially without watching your beloved Premier League, or whatever league you might be watching. Why couldn't we have kind of a period where it's all done at the same time? So having a few friendlies all in one go, so you could have a window for internationals, like over the Christmas period or something, I don't know, or over a certain few weeks. So the Premier League stops, and then we have 2 or 3 kind of international weeks of it kind of thing. Okay. So instead of playing 2 games in that window, you might play double that. So you can have not as many breaks of the league. It just feels like we're stopping the league every couple of weeks.
So is it more like if I don't really know how many international breaks there are in a season now, but instead of there being 12, you want to reduce it to 6.
And just
with
have
the same
them
number
a
of
bit
games.
larger. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, ideally, we want to. That's one of our fixes as well. Try and reduce the number of, especially friendlies. Get rid of friendlies.
Get rid of friendlies. Yeah.
So then it's just actual qualifiers that at least have a meaning or a need to have them. I can understand that.
Yeah.
So just those, and then you have a slightly larger window, an extra week long, for example. So you might be able to get 2 extra games in that. So then we haven't got to go another 2 weeks later on where we just have 2 games in it again.
Yeah.
You see what I mean? I just think that might be a bit easier.
Yeah, I think that makes sense. It's also something that Nations League is something that happens every year. We've said this before, that the World Cup and the Euros, it's brilliant because it's every 4 years. So it's, if you're injured and you miss that, you have to wait another 4 years to play the next tournament. Someone's long career, at most, they could play 5 World Cups.
Yeah, true.
If they're lucky,
And that's why it's so special, isn't it?
That's why it's so special. But Nations League is every year. And we said this with a couple of the other tournaments, like the AFCON, for example, is every 2 years, I think, which it just makes it a little bit weaker in my eyes, that it's just, it's here again. Oh, it's here again.
Yeah. It doesn't have the same value in it because of that.
Yeah.
There were talks of making the World Cup more regularly, weren't they? Instead of
Wenger was talking about that, wasn't he?
Wenger,
every 2 years, was it?
Was it 2 or 3 years, maybe, or whatever it was? Yeah. For once, I disagree with the great man.
You know what? Souness might have had it might have been right.
Not having that. I see what you mean. We want those big over the summer. It's great. It's a nice special thing, but it's also different. So it's nice to have a bit of variety. We don't want Premier League every week for the whole year. I know it's already 9 months or whatever it is. It is amazing. We love it, don't we? But it's nice to have that break, and then you look forward to the next season. And when you do have those World Cups and European Championships, it's different because you get players from all different clubs being summoned to their national teams, and it's a nice, unique feel. It brings people who don't normally watch football watch World Cups and things as well.
Yeah.
So I don't want to get rid of those. They're special.
Yeah, but definitely.
What our main problem is, and I think we've now fixed, haven't we? We're getting rid of pointless friendlies.
Yeah.
There's not going to be as many windows in our world, in our fixed football international calendar. And possibly a more quirky fix from you is the rugby fix, which just happens whilst...
Yeah, carries on.
The league carries on.
Yeah,
certain teams will lose certain of the top players for the international teams.
Yeah, because I'd just like to say, if Man City lose 7 of their top international players, boo-hoo.
They've got 2... Well, actually, their whole squad will probably go, because they've got 2 teams.
They've got academy players that could easily waltz into the Everton first team.
Yeah. It will. So that I can see that point. It will make the league more competitive from the top to the bottom. It will close that gap a bit, wouldn't it?
Yeah.
So for the sake of football, I know I'm an Arsenal fan, and when we'd suffer because of that fix, but for the sake of football, I've got to put that first, I guess. That's our job. It's his job.
Yeah.
Then I can kind of get behind it in that sense, maybe.
Yeah, this might be a bit of an odd fix because it's not specifically internationals related. However, I mentioned it before, and I should have mentioned it on the episode where we were talking about the number of games being played and whatnot. So it's kind of a fix on that. So I want to get rid of the European Conference League or whatever it's called, the third tier European game. I want to get rid of that.
Why? Okay, all right.
So I'll tell you why.
Okay.
Yeah. So Europa League, fair enough, I suppose. Keep that. However, Europa League and Champions League, fewer teams.
Yes.
And I would like to introduce another cup, which I mentioned this to you before. So we don't know truly which league is the strongest. Whether it's the English league and the German league or stuff like that.
But we do know, though, don't we?
Oh, we know. Yeah.
Oh,
but that's because, we're brilliant at this.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, but...
it's our job to know.
Exactly. The German league, however, is actually very fun. In fact, the German second league is almost as good right now. It's brilliant. Okay. La Liga, a lot of people will say La Liga is the strongest, but it's actually really only 2 or 3 teams in there that are strong.
Yeah.
Serie A used to be the strongest, but they're a shadow, their former selves now.
Definitely.
But we don't truly know which league is the best because people keep rating the league based on the top 1 or 2 teams. So what we should do is have a cup where only the bottom, let's say, 3 of each of those leagues enter the competition.
Bottom 3. Ooh.
So basically,
wow.
if you think about the bottom teams of a league, that is the minimum strength of that league.
The relegation cup.
Exactly. Because if you rate...
Sorry, Southampton.
If you rate the German league based on Bayern Munich, then actually that's not rating the league
not fair
properly.
representation,
yeah, same
is it,
as Man City for England, all that, Real Madrid, all that stuff. However, if you do the bottom teams, then you actually know what the minimum standard is for the bottom teams. Not only will it be good money for these relegation battling teams that probably would need more money than the top teams.
Really good point, yeah.
But also, I reckon it would actually make the nations of those teams a lot more patriotic in that sense. So, say for example, the bottom three teams. You want Southampton to be one of the bottom teams. They would go into the tournament. I would start supporting Southampton or the England teams in that tournament, and I would want to watch that.
Yeah, and there's another thing that would make the gap between the top of the league and the bottom of the league close.
Exactly.
Because the lower teams will get that extra finance, they get that extra...
Yeah, that's what we want to do. Try and reduce the gap between top and bottom. And I think instead of constantly bringing in these tournaments and stuff, always for the top teams, the better you do, the more likely you can get into these cups and stuff. No, the bottom teams... Because then, imagine if an England team won it, then we are the strongest league, because even our worst team managed to beat the other leagues.
Yeah, because that's one thing about why we say the Premier League's the best league, isn't it? It's not just the teams at the top, it's competitive, whatever game you play.
Yeah.
I know Man City, because of their situation with the strength that they've managed to build their squad with, it's kind of it has increased the gap, you might argue, because of financially and everything.
Yeah.
But generally speaking, you could play anyone across the Premier League and there's still a good chance you're not going to automatically win it, kind of thing. Whereas in Spain, it is generally the case that other than the top sides, it's not as competitive, and that kind of thing. So it will be a good test in that sense. Yeah, I like that.
Yeah. I think more so for England, I think it's less to do with competitive throughout. I think it's more to do with, until recently, first to 6th or 7th, was a lot closer. Whereas if you look at La Liga, for example, it's first and second are so far, or sometimes first, second, and third. Yeah, would be so far ahead.
Exactly,
so there's that massive gap. Whereas until recently, it was very much, we had a top four for so many years.
Yeah, the big four, wasn't it?
And then there were teams of maybe 2 or 3 that were trying to get into that 4th slot. So there was all of a sudden, instead of just a top 4, you had about 7 or 8 teams that were really competitive. So it was that gap. First to 20th, there was always a big gap. Going back 30 years is a humongous gap. But first to 8th, the top 10, it was far more competitive than the top 10 of Serie A, La Liga, Bundesliga.
And there was something which I think was last season, in one of our episodes, we were talking about another thing which makes the Premier League great is that the finance for the lower sides, that's one of the reasons why they're able to compete as well. Because the Premier League is a brilliant broadcasting league for that. There's loads of great branding and stuff, but the money they get and everything like that helps. And also, we want the money's distributed throughout the league a bit better. In Spain, Barcelona and Real Madrid get pretty much all the money.
Yeah.
So therefore, the teams lower down are never going to be able to compete. And that's why the league's not going to be that strong because of that reason.
And they're suffering now because of it, aren't they?
Yeah, Barcelona are now struggling, Real Madrid. And so Barcelona have had to sell off some of their rights for...
They've literally sold off 25%
TV
of all their...
rights or whatever, isn't it? Yeah, so, so they're in financial trouble because of, they just think they need all the money, when actually it's, if you share the money out, it's better for you as well, kind of thing. It's kind of a bit, you have to think backwards in a sense, but it does work.
Yeah. So what do you think of the I'm going to call it the CES Relegation Cup.
The CES Relegation Cup. Yes.
Money for the lower teams.
Yes.
You can see who really has the strongest league, so everyone could be patriotic, and I reckon there's going to be more people watching that cup than the Europa Conference League or whatever it's called.
Probably. Do you watch the Europa Conference League?
No.
I did when Arsenal were in it, but maybe the latter, like semis and final and stuff you might watch, but generally don't really watch it on the Thursday nights, whatever it is. But I'd love to see Southampton. I would love to see you in a European competition.
Yeah, right.
I would.
After everything you said about them in the last 2 weeks.
Wow. Burnley. That'd be great to see Burnley when when they obviously they're not in the Prem at the moment. Sorry, but to see them and old Sean Dyche style Burnley playing against, Eibar from Spain or something.
Yeah, and
that'd
then
be brilliant.
Yeah, so then you'd be cheering on any of those English teams to win this cup to prove definitively that this is the best league.
Yeah, true. The only one thing is because of even the lower teams in the Prem get a load more money than they would in their equivalent leagues around the world. So there would be a clear advantage at the moment. So hopefully it would help. This finance to England. So I think England would have the advantage because of
that is true.
Southampton would have more financial clout than a lot of teams in Spain and Germany.
I completely agree with that.
Levels.
Which means that basically we can shut up those people that keep saying that Spain's the best because we won the Champions League.
Yeah, that's true. So we would prove that at least. And I think in the long term, after a number of years, it would help pump more money to those lower teams in those other leagues as well. So it would still be a longer term fix on that side. So.
Yeah.
Anyway, we wouldn't lower ourselves to that kind of low level, sort of smutty comment, would we?
No.
But besides that, let's get into our fantasy football tips with John's Juicy Tips. Juicy.
Get your tips out, John.
John's Juicy Tips.
Yeah.
Alright, here's some more fresh, fast FPL facts. This week I'll give you 3 super differentials. All these players are less than 1% owned. So if they get some points, they'll give you a big boost up the leagues. In defence, it's Nikola Milenkovic for Forest. They have a good run of fixtures coming up with 3 bottom half teams in a row. And he has the highest expected goal involvements of any Forest defender. In midfield, it's Facundo Buonanotte, if that's how you say it. This guy could be the biggest bargain in the whole game. Since he's come into the Leicester team, he's averaged 5 points per game. And that's higher than any other player below 5.5 million. And up front, it's Rasmus Højlund from Man United. He's back from his injury and he's back in the goals. Even with Ten Hag's lack of tactics, I expect more goals against West Ham, Leicester and Ipswich, who they've all got coming up soon. Juicy.
Thanks for that, John, as always.
Very juicy.
Yeah.
During our break, I was thinking a bit more about the CES Relegation Cup.
Yeah.
I wanted to bring some more jeopardy into, not necessarily jeopardy, but more of an incentive, I suppose. Imagine if it is, say, for example, the bottom 3 teams in February get entered into the tournament from every league,
right?
And whoever wins doesn't get relegated.
Ooh,
yes.
Yeah. I was wondering actually, because if they're close to being relegated, the teams might be worried that, would they want to really field a strong team in the European competition because they're focusing on the league.
Yeah.
Actually,
but then, think if someone's 20th and they're far 20th and they think,
there's no
this
chance.
is it. Yeah. So the only chance we've got is to win the tournament.
And it's a knockout. So it's not, they've got a chance because there's a few games you can win a competition. So
yeah.
That'd be interesting,
yeah,
actually.
There you go. See? CES Relegation Cup. And like I say, it's the idea for me is to firstly see who has the strongest league. So you have to have the bottom teams playing it. And secondly, to bring some money towards the lower team. Not constantly European Conference League or Europa, Champions League.
And the rich get rich, the poor stay poor kind of thing.
Exactly, yeah. So there we go. CES Relegation Cup. I'm sure a lot of people wanting to take this forward, really, and bring this to life. But make sure you call it the CES Relegation Cup.
Yeah, I'm not sure about the name, if I'm honest.
Yeah,
not
it's
just
all I got at the
moment. CES in it, but also the Relegation Cup. I'm not sure. It brings its own prestige. That
should be a non-relegation cup, shouldn't it?
Yeah, Survival Cup.
Survival Cup.
There you go.
I like it.
How about that? We can call it the James Survival Cup.
Wow.
There we go. Hopefully you've enjoyed the episode today, guys. But we fixed another one, and we're not going to rest until we fixed every single aspect of football. Isn't that right, Sess?
Oh, yeah.
Anyway, let's go to the pub.